Hey guys, so this is something new where I'm just going to be talking about random things that I feel like talking about. Today we're going to be talking about money. Like, how do you view money as a Christian? Because it's probably one of the biggest struggles for me personally, because, I want money, I want to make money, I want to feed your family. And it's like, it's a righteous desire, it's a good thing to have that desire to have that wealth, but at the same time, it can corrupt you, it can sort of change you. So how do we combat it? How do we go against it? Well, to start, obviously you hear, when the first thing you have to know about like money is, it starts with the love of money is the root of all evil. Now, it doesn't say that money is the root of all evil. It says that the love of money is the root of all evil. It's actually very interesting. Money is just sort of like a tool that we use to get what we want. It's like our way to just, it's a reflection of our ability to do stuff. People who have like tons of money sort of act as if they are God. And the cardinal sin, the very first sin that Adam ever commits in the Garden of Eden, is instead of listening to God's instructions on how to know God, he tries to know God himself. That's what Satan tempts him, for you will be like God, knowing good and evil. And he already knew it was evil. Evil is just disobeying God, but he wanted to figure it out for himself. It's much easier to follow God in that path. But money is just, it's our expression of our power, and it's our expression of our ability to do stuff. So to those, it's a deer. To those who God has asked more of, God expects more of, right? So let's say, for example, that, people who have like money, God doesn't enchant them, right? Because money is just sort of like kind of symbolic for power, right? If you have a ton of money, you can basically do anything you want, right? And it says in the Bible that God ordains the kings of this earth and the authority of this earth, and that we are to respect the authority of this earth, right? And the money talks, right? All things happen by the authority of God. Yes, the people who have a lot of money, yes, a lot of them are evil. Yes, a lot of them do like wicked and corrupt things, but God entrusts those people with money for a reason, right? So it's not like no temptation has overcome these people except what they can bear, right? So it's not like the money is corrupting them and it's changing them and it's manipulating them to do all this stuff. No, God lets them have it. All things happen with the authority of God. So you have that. So then if the money doesn't make you evil, it's you that makes you evil. The money is just a reflection of you. That's why in the parable of the talents, a man gives several servants 1 talent, 10 talents, 100 talents. No, just it's 5 and 10. It's 5 and 10. And they each grow it respectively, so that it earns interest. But the one he only gives a little bit, that guy stashes it away out of fear. Out of fear that, actually shoot, I got the whole parable wrong. 1 talent, they all get 1 talent. One guy turns it into 5, one guy turns it into 10. So the master gives the guy who turned it into 5 more talents. The guy who turned it into 10 more talents. And he gives the one guy, one guy hid it away, and he chastises that guy for sort of being pathetic, because he's not using this money for good. He's only keeping it out of fear for God, right? So it's interesting. The money is just a reflection of what we are supposed to do with that money is with God, right? So there's a story I heard a long time ago of a Christian billionaire who he buys strip clubs and he just shuts them down. And it takes money to do that. He doesn't even need financing. He literally just will buy them, get the licenses, and just shut it down. So, or he'll turn it into like women's crisis centers. And he's just taking these things that are such acts of places of evil and places of despair, and he's turning them into places of good, right? But he couldn't do that without the money that God gave him. Even the people who are like secular, right, and who espouse sort of evil ideologies, they still make these things, they still do these things that are worthy of accomplishment and that benefit the world, and they are using this money for good. even like the private equity scumbags who just go like buying roads and bridges, which I kind of am one. But nevertheless, that's like money. And it also says that you are expected to make money. You are expected to make an earning. It says somewhere, I think it's one of Paul's epistles, I can't remember, but that a person who can't feed his family is worse than an unbeliever, right? It's not saying that like, oh, if you're having a hard time, if you're having hard ends, if you can't make the ends meet, you're just a terrible person. More so, it's just the lack of willing, the lack of care, right? Lots of Proverbs talk about like the sluggard who refuses to get out of his bed. The sluggard who refuses to get out of his bed. And it's sort of akin to that sort of mention where it's like, there are many people who just do not do everything that they can to feed their family, and that is literally being worse than an unbeliever. Why? Because your family is what God has entrusted you responsibility to take care of. Right? We have a highest responsibility to those who are nearest to us. And so ultimately, what ends up happening is, I'm blanking. We have the highest responsibility to those nearest to us. So the little that God gives us, it ties very well back actually with the parable of the talents. If God gives us our talent, as in this family that we need to manage, and we don't manage it well at all, we just kind of bury our head in the sand and we try to preserve it, God will take it away from us because we're not the proper stewards and we're not the proper shepherds of it. So that's the role of money. That's the love of money. All these things, they work towards the glory of God, right? It's not a sin to be poor. It's not a sin to be rich. It's not a sin to be middle class. It's a sin to love money more than God. And it's a sin to put like your trust in money. I'll air myself out as a personal sin, right? I work like I'm kind of a workaholic. I have that nature in me. And there was times where I was putting like 80, 90 hours a week in, studying, networking, working at my job, all that, and it was taking time away from like God. Like I was still going to church, but my readings were just rushed. I didn't hang out with anybody. Literally, it was just work. It was just work, and then I got like 2 hours at the end of the weekend to go to church, and then I would still work. And God makes this creation. God gives us money for us to enjoy it so we can reflect on the glory of God. Not for us to worship it, but for us to just dwell in God's goodness and dwell in God's presence, right? That's what money can buy you, right? Everybody says like money doesn't buy you happiness. No, but it buys you that ability to have that peace and that comfort so you can spend more time focusing on the things of the Lord, focusing on the good things, right? And if you can find that happiness, if you can find that ability, if you can find that peace on $20,000 a year, on $50,000 a year, on $500,000 a year, on $200 million a year, right? You can find that peace on anything. So ultimately, it just sort of comes down to, what do you trust most? Do you trust that God will provide, or do you trust that the money will provide? Do you trust that God will provide, or do you trust that your savings account, the markets, the economy will provide? Because you don't know what's going to happen, right? I'm in college right now. I'm studying accounting. And one of the things that you do sometimes get worried about is, oh shoot, they say accounting is like a very safe job, right? Well, if I get my CPA, I'm set for life, right? Pretty much I can get a job wherever, I'll be good, right? But say I go into tax accounting, oh shoot, Trump just all of a sudden decides to uphold the IRS. Well shoot, my very stable job is now no longer stable, right? I mean, Benjamin Franklin literally has the quote, there's only two things that are permanent in this world, death and taxes. And that's actually not even true. Taxes have not been around for forever, and we've beaten death through the glory of Jesus Christ, right? The only thing that is certain then is Jesus. The only thing that is certain is the truth and the revelation of God in Jesus, right? Even the money points back to God. Money is sort of what we are entrusted with to take care of by God. And so, in our relationship with money, it's not about, us making this bread so that we can, it's not making this bread, but it's also not that the bread is evil, right? It's not that this money is evil. It's not that this money is sinful. It's that the money is your responsibility to take care of this world and what God has given you to take care of. And for me right now, I'm a broke college student, so God has not given me much to take care of, right? But for like my family, right? Like, they give them the money, they have to take care of the family, right? The money is there to, first you take care of yourself, your family, ultimately, then your local church, then the nation broader. Ultimately, all of it works for God's purposes, right? So, I like to think back to the woman who gave 2 mites in the temple, where she gives 2 mites to the temple, and that's all she has. 2 mites is like basically pennies. And Jesus says she gave all that she could. She gave out of her poverty, right? Give out of your poverty. It doesn't mean you give money. You can give money. For me, my poverty was time, right? So the way I got out of 80 hours a week was actually I started this channel, and it forced me to just kind of, I stopped working at 11 p.m. because I would push into like 12, 1 o'clock frequently. I stopped working at 11 p.m. And lo and behold, my study methods got much better. The opportunities have opened up. Just the time has found itself where I can spend more time on the things of God and more time with the people that I want to be around, more time doing awesome things, like all the things that God asks of me to do. And it's just, that is like the 4th deer I've seen on my drive. That's crazy. I hope I don't hit one someday. But that's all the money is. And so if you feel, to a person who's like, I want to make money, but I feel like it's an idol in my life, trust it to God. Give it to God. Ask Him what to do with it, right? Because ultimately, all of the parables that Jesus tells us, there's a spiritual component to it. But if you truly, truly examine yourself, every single time you fail short. Every single time. Even in this car ride, I've prayed several times, like, God, I am kind of stumbling with my words. I'm getting kind of awkward. I don't know what to say. Just kind of guide me. And, every single instance, we are falling short of the glory of God. Every single moment, we fall short of what God wants us. We don't have the fullness of grace without Jesus. And so we always have to remind ourselves of that. And that's with everything that God gives us. That's with the money. That's with the time. That's with the talents. That's with the people. That's with the blessings. That's with everything that we have. Right? And so working too little is a sin. Working too hard is a sin. So it might be, there are times where God calls you to work 40 hours a week. There might be times where God calls you to work 60. There might be times where God calls you to work 20. Whatever you're called to do, you do it, right? And so all money is it's just what God has entrusted you to take care of. So I hope this helps. I was going to talk about something completely different, but something just kind of told me, just talk about money. I prayed on it, and money, it kind of flowed, it kind of came out well. If you like this stuff, just let me know. I hope this helps. I don't think anybody's going to be watching this, but this is just an idol that I've struggled with. I'm an accountant, like I said. I study money for a living. I study how it works. I would love to do someday, just talk about biblical investing. If that would be such a cool video where you just talk about how to invest based on biblical principles. But regardless, it's an idol I've struggled with, and I don't want others. I want others to at least understand what I've learned in this little bit of time. I'm not perfect, but by the way, I upload Bible videos every single day. So we're on a chapter. I don't remember. I think I'm on Exodus 10. It's the plagues, so it's been a little tricky to kind of get a summary around it, but it's still really cool. In my personal readings, I'm reading Chronicles, which I just have not set the time aside to do a deep genealogical study. So I wake up in the morning, I read 3 chapters, the 3 genealogies, I'm cool, and I go off. And then I've been reading at nights. I've been reading my Bible in a day. I usually do that when I get home from life. And then I read personally. Sometimes I'd post it, but I kind of stopped. If y'all want me to start posting those writings again, just type it in the comments, or if you're watching and I know you, shoot me a message. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Anyway, peace out.